Well, primarily for the sports. I had whittled it down to five Big Ten schools. Had pretty much decided I wanted to go to a Big Ten school. I was also fortunately convinced by my uncle and my parents to pursue engineering, just in case I didn't make it as a professional basketball player, which obviously was the case. So I had some good guidance. I was blessed in that regard to have something to fall back on.
Okay.
So my uncle, who attended the University of Illinois, also was an engineer, but he was on the track team. But he was very instrumental in more or less guiding me to pursue an engineering career. I didn't even know what engineering was at the time, but I was not that proficient in language, so out of default, I knew I wasn't going to pursue a LS&A degree. So I was strong in math and science, so I thought, and so I pursued engineering degree. Well, coming from Indiana, I didn't know anyone at the university. Fortunately, obviously they have an orientation. I went to orientation. I chose the last orientation so that I wouldn't have to go back home afterwards. So the last orientation at that time was in August, and I just remember the obviously the vastness of the university and the campus and so forth. I didn't know anyone, so it's just like for anyone going to college. It's a very interesting time. Sometimes some people are fortunate to have a few friends that they know from their school that goes on from their high school that goes on to college, but in my case that was not it. So the first friend I had at University of Michigan was a guy by the name of Gerald Peaks. He was a Kappa, uh, and he knew some of the athletes there and kind of took me under his wing, and that kind of helped me to adjust. I was leaning toward Kappa anyway because my father was a Kappa. He went to Southern University, and my uncle, who went to University of Illinois, he was also a Kappa. So and then I ended up pledging Kappa. But I remember that the vastness of the university. You're away from home for the first time, and you're taking it all in, and you're uncertain about what the future is going to lie ahead. So it was interesting, to say the least. And John and I hit it off, exchanging stories and so forth. Me about Indiana, him about the guys that he had played against in Detroit. So, the funniest thing that happened uh, that first semester, because he was only there the one semester, is the dorms. I don't know if you maybe about this wide as this room, and with a double bed in the middle. I mean, a bed on each side. And I can remember one morning hearing this strange sound, woof, woof. I said, "What the heck?" I didn't know what the heck was going on, and I opened my eyes, and John was standing up in the middle of the room, swinging his bat, a baseball bat, because he was getting ready for his obviously his career. And John slept with his bat. Okay, John's idol, because John was a left-handed hitter, was Ted Williams. And I don't know where he got this idea, but John would swing that bat. For the longest, I didn't know he was doing it. He was swinging. I said, "John, are you crazy? If I sit up, you could have killed me," or something like that. But he was determined, but he was very focused on getting his swing nice and level and so forth. But John was quite a character. And he and a friend of ours from Ben Harbor named Fred Watson and some other people would get together and we'd tell stories and so forth. And John wasn't doing any studying. We had to study, so that was my first intro to some interesting characters at University of Michigan. But John was a hell of a guy, though. on the night that we, what they call crossed the burning sands, when our line was inducted into the fraternity, is when Martin Luther King was killed. And I can remember that as sure as it was yesterday, because we were downstairs, we were going through these little situations that you go through when you're pledging. And I can remember somebody upstairs. The Kappas were the only fraternity on the university, only black fraternity on the university that actually had a fraternity house. And I can remember we were downstairs, and I remember somebody saying, hearing them say, "Hey y'all, Martin Luther King was killed today." And we said, "Oh man." And so we didn't realize the impact of that. We knew someone important had been killed, but here we are selfishly thinking about ourselves. We're saying, "Oh man, we are really going to get it now." Because now these guys are going to be pissed and going to take things out on us. So I could, and then the next day, because it's one of these all-night things, we weren't properly focused. And, on what the impact of what had happened. We were more concerned about us, and so that it's kind of a mixed thing. But I obviously will never forget that. The very best was getting my degree. After my eligibility for my scholarship was up in 1971. By that time, I was married with a child, and reality setting in that I have to provide for my family. So I had to stay out of school and establish residency in the state, since I was out of state, in order to get a lower tuition rate. So I did that and finished my degree in '73 with the remaining classes that I needed to take. And so my best memory is getting my degree, no question about it. Finally accomplishing and getting that engineering degree. Establish friends in the classes where and create quote unquote like a team atmosphere, and work together to more or less tackle subjects. Someone that has a strength in the area that could help you, and vice versa, you could help them. Be open to diversity. Someone always has something to bring to the table. Be sure to listen to another person's viewpoint, and doesn't mean you have to change yours, but be open to discussion on different issues and so forth. Have an open mind. Cherish the time that you have. Realize that it will pay off in the end. They're just getting you ready for